All right. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. This recording will also be unedited, so there will be ums and ahs and vocalizations. But welcome to experiment number 2 with the Storyteller Project. I am your host, Lisette Alvarez, and today is the first day of the challenge. I was just talking to the folks here on the Discord channel for this reading. This is live, this is in front of a few people. So, what I was telling them is that I really enjoyed the first experiment that I did, which was the wedding project. And the format for this experiment will be more or less the same, but obviously a different story. So, what I have in front of me right now is the same decks that I used before, which were the Next World Tarot, created by Christy C. Rode, and the Tarot of the Divine by Yoshi. Both are wonderful, wonderful decks. I highly recommend you picking them up if tarot is your jam. But for today, this first challenge, the first day challenge, this run of the Storyteller Project is going to be for 5 days. And each subsequent day, there will be a challenge to create a modern audio folktale. So this day is the collective tarot reading. Now, what does that mean? It means that I'm going to do a tarot reading to create the elements of this folktale. And what I'm going to ask of you, the people who are listening live and the people who are listening on, the podcast a few hours from now, a few days from now, a few weeks from now, a few months or years from now. If you are hearing this, what I am doing is asking you to imagine what it would be like if you could contribute, that collective thought or need of what kind of a story do you think that our world needs right now? I'm a storyteller by vocation, so I also feel that stories should be told in community. And I think there's value in having stories, especially now where we have, prestige television at our fingertips. There's something different about the practice of telling a story in community around a virtual or real hearth fire. So this story is going to be told in the podcast Tales from the Hearth. In each 5 days, there will be a recording that will be released. So for today, I want you to imagine that, like, this whole process, this whirlwind of activity that I'm going to be primarily generating, what you would contribute, what thoughts, what questions of life, what themes in your life are coming up for you, for your community, for our world, for your family, for your friends. Like, what are these themes that seem relevant? I think stories can bring those things forward. And what I'm hoping is, as I open these decks, I can have you all imbue those thoughts, those questions, those themes into the cards. The tarot reading is, again, you don't have to be a believer in tarot in order to see this as what it is, which is a creative exercise in storytelling, a Mad Libs, if you will. So what I'm going to do is cut the deck. I'm going to get a few moments to split both decks, just general shuffle to disperse the energy of previous readings, because I do use these for other readings as well, though it's always really interesting. This is the reading that has been really useful. All right, so I'm going to put my hands over these card decks. And while I do that, I want you to imagine bringing forward in your mind that question, that theme that you're seeing within your life, within your community. what stories does our culture, does your culture want to hear, want to see? I want you to bring that forward in your mind now. And I'm going to ask, what are the stories? What is the next story that wants to be told? All right. I'm going to actually shuffle these. All right. For some reason, this section is what's being brought up for me. I'll keep that as option 1. That's definitely going to be option 2. And these cards are way too big for hand shuffling, and I have very small hands. The other thing that I have found it really interesting is that for those who weren't aware or haven't heard the first tarot reading, the first experiment, one of the things that I really liked about this process was that there are actually in the Tarot of the Divine, there's actually folk tales, and then Next World Tarot is about the future of our communities, and I think they're really good decks to create a modern folktale. All right, so we have a couple of questions that we answer during this particular experiment. Let me make sure I actually have everything. There you are. I'm actually pulling up the actual thing, the actual tarot. I apologize for the pause, both in this and in... Where the heck is it? Oh, well. I had it somewhere. Oh, well. I will go from memory, and we'll pull it together afterwards. All right. So what I did last time was create these tarot decks, the selections, and then actually put them in alternating order. So the first one that will be pulled is the Tarot of the Divine, and that will represent our main character or characters. The second one has to do with the central conflict in our story. The third is going to be, what is the goal? What is our character seeking? Oh, for some reason I decided to put both. Okay, it's not actually alternating. It's always interesting when I have, my hands work in separate from my actual brain. All right, the next one is our antagonist, or what actually confronts our main hero or heroes. The next one are, what are the tools that are needed, or the allies that need to be gained during this. The sixth is about what is going to be sacrificed, what needs to be sacrificed in order for our hero to reach their goal. And then the seventh is obviously, what is the message? What is this story actually about? And I always like to look at the end, but I'll hold off on that to see if there's any cards that need to be pulled out. Now, I don't have a lot of space on my desk here, but as we go through, I'm going to flip and I'm going to show the card to the camera so that y'all have a actual view of what the card is and what it's about. And because I do not memorize the meanings of all these cards, because every tarot deck is different, every tarot deck has like slightly different energy or core, especially the Tarot of the Divine, because they each have actual folk tales, I will probably be pulling from the little booklet. I'm not one of those folks that, memorize the cards, right? So for this reading, for this collective tarot reading for this story, our protagonist will be the moon. Oh, that's interesting. So what I love about folktales is that they're often, or very frequently, they are morphized entities, animals, things like that. I kind of like the idea of creating a story that is about the moon. And the moon card itself, traditionally in tarot, the moon card has to do with illusions, or it has to do with dreams, knowing what is real, what is the nature of reality. I'm going to actually pull forward the moon card, which is great because this is actually the moon card is actually the cover of the Tarot of the Divine book. So the moon has to do with this, in this particular folktale, is Princess Kaguya. So here there are two in the card. There's two tanukis, and I apologize if I mistake. I'm going to show this card. So the tanukis are, there's two raccoon-like animals right on the corner of the bridge. And these tanukis, they're shape-shifting raccoon-like animals, and they each stare at a different moon. And you actually see one's looking up what looks like at the real moon, and the one that is reflected in a pond of water. So there's a bridge, just to describe what's on the card. There's a bridge, there's a woman on the bridge who's looking at the moon above, and then there's two of these raccoon dog-like animals, that one on each side of the bridge, and one's looking at the pond where there's the moon reflected, and one's looking at the actual moon. So I like this idea of using the moon, or maybe these like animals, or as kind of a metaphor for an illusion of some kind, or what is reality, or what is real. So our protagonist, I feel, might be torn between what is real and what is not. Maybe he's being tricked in some way, or or has a spell cast upon them that keeps them from seeing what is reality. So our next card is about the nature of the conflict in the story. And it is actually the Four of Cups, and it actually came out as reversed. So I will say the Next World Tarot does have some nudity in some of the images. So I will show you it, just be aware for those on who don't want to look. There is some nudity. So this is Four of Cups reversed. So the image itself is of a person who is sitting on a dock and is surrounded by water. There's what looks like messages in bottles in the water, and around them there's nail polish kind of scattered around, and the person is sitting in kind of a bathrobe and is like just looking at their hands, looking at their nails, right? So they seem kind of, disheveled. So the Four of Cups often means that there is some kind of situation where you actually have to reevaluate yourself. You have to understand what it is that emotionally what's happening in your life. So and usually the number 4 has to do with cycles. So, and cups has to do with emotions. So I get the sense that the conflict here is about a lot of someone who's kind of really messy, who's trying to figure out what's going on with themselves and is unable to truly understand what the emotional stakes are of what it is that they're doing or what it is that they're seeing. So this has to do with emotional, and I kind of get the sense, of maybe a broken heart. I don't know, because the image itself of this person who's just kind of disheveled in their robe, there's kind of messages kind of scattered around. It was like they're trying to ask people, like, what they want, but they can't actually evaluate if what they're doing is right. All right, so the next card has to do with what their goal is. It's the Six of Cups, and actually it was the Six of Cups reversed. So the Six of Cups usually has to do with like some kind of party, and in the card itself, and the card, both these past 2 cards are the next world. So this one, the Six of Cups, there's an older person, probably a grandparent with their 2 grandchildren, and they're blowing bubbles in the sand. It's clearly a joyous occasion. However, reversed, it means isolation or alienation. I feel, again, like if I'm getting this kind of broken heart sensation, maybe what the idea is they want to reunite. They want to reconnect with with like a family member or with maybe their past or their past loved one, but they don't know how to do that. And this is giving me vibes because quite often in some, like looking back to actually the protagonist, there are stories of going to the moon or like the sky as a way to reconnect with especially past or dead loved ones. I'm curious if that's might be something to use. Let's see. All right, so the next connection here is what skills or what allies do they need to recruit in order to achieve their goal? It's the Hanged Man. And I recognize this. This is the Terror of the Divine. I'm pretty sure this story, the fairy tale, is Briar Rose, because it's a image of a woman hanging upside down, blonde-haired woman, and surrounded by roses. I'm gonna double check though if that is. I usually know my fairy tales, especially my Western fairy tale. Oh, it's Sleeping Beauty. Yep. So Briar Rose, Sleeping Beauty. So the Hanged Man often has to do with suspension, restriction, sacrifice, readjustment, which is interesting because it's not the sacrifice card, but it has to do with sacrifice. So the type of tools that might be needed, and especially with something like Briar Rose, it means sleep. The fact that our protagonist is connected to the moon says to me that this is something about dreams. It's something about sleep here. And the type of tools that are needed is something that has to do with rest, or something that has to do with letting go of reality, letting go of the physical world. That's kind of tool that will be needed in order to explore this other realm, the realm of the moon, if you will. All right, so the next bit is the sacrifice that must be made, and this is upright. Well, you know what I said about broken hearts and something that has to do with, love or a past lover? The sacrifice that has to be made in this story. And again, there's a, what's it called? A caveat here on this card. There's some nudity. So while I show that, please just be aware. Also, if somebody has their microphone on, can they turn that off, please? I think it's Rat Queen. Yeah, I'm seeing the thing there. Thank you. Appreciate it. I know today, this morning, I actually was on a call and I did not have my microphone on. It's always annoying to have to, use this as a medium, right? No, you're not. No worries. I think even in the pandemic, it feels like nobody knows whether or not our mic is on or not off. And especially when I'm recording, there's been a couple of times when I've done interviews where I didn't actually hit record on my button. So I think it's a blind spot for all of us. But thank you. All right, back into the reading, because I'm leaving you all in suspense of what the sacrifice is. Well, I said about, loved ones or a broken heart. Well, the card is the Lovers. That is what is going to be sacrificed in this story, or let go of, as it were. So the Lovers card in the tarot doesn't necessarily always mean an actual lover. It tends to be about love of self or different aspects of self. So even in this card, there is an image of a person who is disabled and has a cane as an assistive device. They are being greeted through a mirror with a naked version of themselves who is offering a set of spoons to their self, right? The Lover's card often has to do with that kind of reciprocal relationship with self, this idea of love and compassion with the various aspects of self. Now, if it's something to be sacrificed, I kind of like the idea of going a little bit more literal here, that this does have to do with someone who is, still in kind of the denial phase of their grieving over either the loss of a loved one or a broken heart, or someone that they who has left them, whatever the case may be, and they have to get to a place where they actually let go, perhaps of that relationship. That is what needs to be sacrificed in order for them to move forward. So the next card that I'm going to share, it has to do with what the ending is going to be. And I might have forgotten. I feel like I've forgotten something, guys. So I got the protagonist, the conflict, I forgot about the antagonist, the actual antagonist. Because the conflict, I think it was like what they were searching for. That's what I actually missed. So I think this one needs to be the antagonist. So in this whole thing, like, who is the antagonist? Oh, that's funny. It's the Fool, but it's the Fool in reverse. It was reversed. So the Fool has to do with taking on new journeys. And usually the Fool in reverse means not going on or refusal to go on this new journey. I'm getting a lot of resistance to actually change, like a resistance to change in this story, right? And this card, the Fool card, is represented actually by, and I'm pretty sure I recognize this, and some of you might too. It's a mermaid on looking up at a castle, and I'm pretty sure it's the Little Mermaid. And the idea, of course, of the Little Mermaid is that she wants to have legs. She wants to move along in the human world. Granted, the actual old fairy tale is quite dark, and actually there's some evidence to say that it's a metaphor for queer love. So if this is the antagonist, that is someone who is either refuses to change or refuses to go on an adventure or to a new journey, I wonder if it's someone who is, if it is the protagonist themselves, if it's a version, or if it's an actual person who's telling them, no, you can't go on this journey. You can't start anew. And I wonder what that would be about. All right, well, maybe I'll get the answer in the final card, which is the message. What is this whole story supposed to be about? What is the message that wants to be? Sorry, this is very interesting. The message is the Fool, but the other deck. It's a Fool from the next world. So this story is about change. It is about going on a new journey. It is about, breaking free of your old path and starting a new one. The image on this is of a person who's sitting at what looks like a bus stop bench and is kind of looking out to the horizon, and on the sign behind the bench, it initially says Yonkers. I believe Christy Road, the creator of this deck, lives in New York or lives or has lived there, but instead there's graffiti and it says nowhere. So instead of Yonkers, it's like graffiti and it says nowhere, that they are nowhere, or they're starting from nowhere. And around them, there's all sorts of leaves blowing in the wind. There's cornucopias, there's money blowing in the wind, there's coins. So there's really a sense of movement, of beginning, of new ideas, new journeys. All right. So this is a really interesting story. And I'm starting to get a little bit of what, right, Denise? Like, yeah, two fools. Like the idea that the antagonist, like the actual, like, it's not the conflict itself. The conflict itself is the Four of Cups, which has to do with internal evaluation. Both, like the fool upright means to start a new journey, and then the Fool reverse has to do with the refusal to start a journey, or the unwillingness to go and find a new path, or you're not ready to find a new path. And that's, I kind of like the idea of having the antagonist being an actual character. So I kind of want it to be a character that says like, no, you can't, or, you shouldn't, something to that effect. And then the idea of that actually the message has to be about change. It has to be about how do you go from a place where you are in a cycle of emotions, of nostalgia, what have you, and what does it mean to actually start a new journey from there? It's difficult, right? It's a difficult theme. It's a difficult conflict, which makes it interesting. So I'm going to work on this to see what actually comes out over the next day or two, but usually I like to check to see if there are any major arcana cards at the bottom of the deck, and there is, and it's hilarious because the only other card that's on the bottom of the deck it's the beginning and the end. The beginning, it's also so it's funny. So in the beginning, our protagonist is the moon, and at the end, the antagonist and the message is about the fool. At the end too, the thing that's hiding in our culture, and that's why I usually when I check to see if there is a major arcana card at the bottom of either deck, it usually means that there's something like the shadow of our culture is hiding something from us or hiding some kind of knowledge. The hiding knowledge is again from the Next World Tarot. And again, both of these, so like I said, the two fools were pulled, one from each deck. The card that I pulled that is the shadow here is the moon. Right? Like, fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. This means that there's something about this connection. So the moon is in cycles, right? It's a cyclical element, right? And I'm going to pull this up. So the moon in the Next World Tarot card is a young person with long hair who's staring up at the moon, and at their feet and on their knee is a little bird, and at their feet is a lobster and a dog. And it's fascinating because the lobster and the dog is also something that is seen in some of the older tarot decks, like the Rider-Waite Coleman deck. That also portrays kind of the two animals as a dog and a lobster, which has to do with the unconscious and the conscious, so the active and the passive, or a water element and a earth element kind of thing, or so that line between reality and dreams, illusion and non-illusion, or the truth. There is something in our culture, I think. So again, I'm going to show these two cards side by side too. So there's the moon and the moon. Both of them are telling us something about our story and potentially our culture. And then the fool and the fool. Like, again, like, it's fascinating. All right. Yeah. There's something here. I think I need to sit on it more about what it actually, like, what the story is actually going to do, like what our character is or characters are. I kind of understand a little bit. I'm starting to kind of get a sense of like maybe what the beats are. I'm looking at these cards again too, and there is a lot of the stories that come up, especially the story of the moon, the hanged man, and the fool, which are all from the Tarot of the Divine and are fairy tales. You have the moon, which has to do with a fairy tale. I'm actually not familiar with the princess, starts with a K. I'm going to have to look at it. Kaguya. I'm going to look that up, of like what the actual story of Princess Kaguya is. I just hit the mic, which is faux pas. Kaguya. I'm not familiar. It's the tale of Princess Kaguya, which is actually a film. There's a film about it. There's the tale of the bamboo cutter. It stories the life of Kaguya Hime, a princess from the moon who's discovered as a baby inside the stalk of a glowing bamboo plant. As she grows, her beauty attracts 5 suitors seeking her hand in marriage, whom she turns away by challenging them each with an impossible task. She later attracts the affection of the emperor. So at the tale's end, she reveals her celestial origins and returns to the moon. Oh, that's interesting. So this story is, it's a strange story. It's like this idea that you go down, this entity goes down to Earth, sets up a task, like has suitors, including the emperor who wants her hand in marriage, and then gets them to do the task and then returns right back to the moon. Like, what it seems like a cyclical, nothing actually is accomplished. I don't know. That's an interesting aspect of that tale too. Granted, I won't be literal in actually having the protagonist mirror the tale of the bamboo cutter, but I'm curious of what elements are that aspect of bringing forward someone who is the actual purpose, or the actual intention is cyclical. Like it doesn't actually resolve anything. What does it actually teach you? Obviously, fairy tales and folk tales, like, even the Tale of the Bamboo Cutter, those tales do have messages. But my question for this story is, what is this cyclical action or activity? Is it the I get the sense of someone who is in love with love and is in love with the idea of love, but doesn't actually know what it means to sacrifice or to truly love, and is instead kind of in a cycle of falling in and out of love. I'm getting that vibe, and that's a kind of thing that I think many people have. It's a common ailment among people. So I don't know. I'm going to look to see if there's any other commonalities that I'm seeing. Each of these cards, the Moon, the Hangman, and the Fool, there's the Princess Cook, Sleeping Beauty, and the Little Mermaid. There's all something about that have to do with love, or like true love, or the one true love, and what it means to be in love, and what kind of sacrifices are made when you love someone. Sleeping Beauty, obviously, the prince has to fight through briars and thorns in order to reach Sleeping Beauty, and obviously, thanks Disney, fight a dragon. That's not necessarily in the same in the actual lore, but the Little Mermaid, similarly, the original has to do with her falling in love with a human man and wishing for legs and losing her voice in order to do so. And at the very end is actually rejected, is actually, dies, of heartbreak. So I'm getting a sense that this has to do with love, or it has to do with some kind of message around love. And the idea of the Fool, the message behind all this, it is what it means to start a new journey, to try again, maybe try love again, or try love in a new way. Maybe that's what this all means, because the hidden bit of this is, what is reality and what is not, what actually works, what is the cycles of, the stories we tell ourselves that just keep us coming back to the same, toxic relationships or toxic behaviors. There's something about that too. And the idea of like her goal is, or I'm getting a her from the protagonist, says the goal is to reunite with somebody. That again, it like reemphasizes this has to do with true love, which is interesting, because this story actually is the dark mirror of the folktale that I created for Patreon, The Mouse's Wife. Similarly, has to go up, and like this character has to go up into the sky or go up into the celestial realm in order to find her husband and break his curse. But this seems to be like, well, what's the inverse of this? What's the journey that is actually a cyclical journey? Thank you. Someone just said, I love The Mouse's Wife. Appreciate it. I literally made it in 24 hours so I could have something to send to Tribeca. Fingers crossed that it gets accepted. We'll see. I'll let y'all know, of course. But yeah. All right. I'm trying to see if there's anything else that's coming to me for this. No, I think I just need to like kind of muse upon it more. Tomorrow will be the creation of the log line, the actual plot line, and mood board. So I'm gonna have to see when I'll be able to actually be in this workshop. I am going to be out and about tomorrow. I didn't plan this very well. So I will let you all know, both here and elsewhere, when I'll be able to be on the Storytellers workshop. I will be able to work, just not in person necessarily. I don't think I'll be able to stream. I'm going to be in an office during the day. I might be able to do it in the evening or late afternoon, but I might also be in a cafe. We'll see. We'll play it by ear. But I'll let y'all know about that. Either way, you will hear a recording of the log line by the end of the day tomorrow. So for those listening in, and this is the indication that I'm wrapping up my recording, and then I'll take a few minutes to let y'all ask questions or bring feedback in. I'm going to be doing for the rest of this week. I should be able to, tomorrow's the only exception. The rest of the week, I should be able to be around noon, do a collective or the storytellers workshop, probably like noon, between noon and 2 p.m. Eastern is my general availability, but I will of course schedule something out to know. But I really appreciate everybody joining in and contributing their thoughts and feelings and energies and all that fun stuff, figuratively if or literally, however you want to interpret that. It's such an interesting format to create a new story, and this one's gonna be a good, if potentially heartbreaking one. I always love a good heartbreak. All right, I will close out by saying thank you for all of you who support the Storyteller Project and Tales from the Hearth. This is the first day. We are open to, if you want to financially support the Storyteller Project so that we can continue doing this and showcase what a collective investment in the arts looks like. You can go on to our website, stormfireproductions.com/storyteller. There is a link on that page to support the project. And yeah, our goal is to raise $500 in 5 days. So if you have any desire to support the collective arts, and or if you want yourself to try out this same experiment at some point, please, 1, reach out, and 2, feel free to use this format to run your own community storytelling experiment. This is a openly shared format. So yeah, thank you all for listening, and we'll be back tomorrow with a log line and a mood board, wherever you get your podcasts and wherever you find your hearth. Take care, everyone.